If you've spent any time looking at the Silver Age format, you probably know that it's shaping up to be one of the best ways to play Flesh and Blood. The format is fast, fun, and best of all, it's the cheapest way to play the game competitively. But you don't have to take my word for it.
Silver Age is this fast, fun, affordable way to play Flesh and Blood. I see it as this beautiful opportunity to welcome the next wave of new players.
It really feels like the dawn of a new era of Flesh and Blood.
While I agree that the Silver Age format is an incredible way to pick up and play the game, choosing one of almost 60 different heroes in the format can feel like a daunting task. Thankfully, the first 2 chapters of Silver Age precons cover the game's spectrum of classes, talents, and playstyles, and today's video will help you figure out which precon is right for you. I'll be covering how each precon feels to play, from their hero ability, difficulty level, and playstyle, as well as going over their core mechanics and play patterns. If you're interested in learning more about Flesh and Blood hero design, my video covering that topic will be linked in the description below. While this video is geared for new players, I hope that there are meaningful insights for even experienced players. If you're new to Flesh and Blood, let me know which hero you want to try the most. And if you're a long-term Flesh and Blood player, help new players out by sharing your favorite hero, as well as why they're your favorite in the comments below. I'll be breaking down today's heroes in order of difficulty level, starting with the easiest heroes to pick up, and ending with the more challenging heroes to master. If you're new to TCGs, 1-star heroes are great for learning the game. While these heroes are the simplest, they're also phenomenal for mastering Flesh and Blood's fundamentals. 2-star heroes are slightly more complex, requiring you to sequence your cards properly in order to maximize their strengths. However, 2-star heroes are still largely new player friendly. Heroes in the middle of the curve add an extra layer of difficulty. They require even more sequencing with a lot of moving parts and cards that interact with each other. 4-star heroes are the most challenging precons to pick up. This is because they play on both players' turns and require a lot of situational awareness. However, if any of these heroes look cool to you, don't let their difficulty level prevent you from picking them up and having fun. While there aren't any 5-star precons, Gravy Bones, Kayo, and Azalea are even more difficult than Enigma and Iyslander. These heroes have complex abilities and card pools that require dynamic, game state dependent decision making in order to win games. But if you want to win more games of Flesh and Blood, give Codex Journals a try. They're a fantastic tool to help you improve at the game. No matter your current experience level, Codex Journal's match review pages can help you reflect on your losses and turn them into wins. If you go to codexjournals.com/BIOS and enter code BIOS, it will help support my channel while also getting 10% off your next order. Now, back to the video. The first hero we're starting with is Bravo Flattering Showman. His hero ability lets him pay 2 resources to turn a Crush Attack and Arsenal face up to give it +2 attack and dominate. As a Guardian, his Crush Attacks provide plenty of disruption whenever they deal 4 or more damage to a hero. On defense, his equipment suite can block extremely well, as much as 12 damage over the course of the game. His defensive cards also provide good utility, with Crash and Bash creating a Seismic Surge for revealing a Crush card from hand. Clash of Vigor also helps Bravo create Vigor tokens on defense, often generating a resource to play his 4-cost attacks with just a single blue. As a disruptive hero, Bravo wants to play attacks that will disrupt his opponents the most. Bravo's hero ability helps ensure that he can make his most important Crush attacks connect with and disrupt his opponents. Even though Bravo is a defensive hero, he still has several offensive tools available to him. While Pummel is a generic card, it's a powerful Guardian attack reaction that almost guarantees his Crush effects and makes his opponents discard on hit. The Suspense is Killing Me is another combat trick that can be used by Bravo to surprise his opponents. While he has plenty of big attacks, Bravo wants to block with most of his hand each turn, pitch a blue to swing Titan's Fist, and maybe set up a Crush Attack and Arsenal for his hero ability on the following turn. Once he has the ideal Crush Attack and Arsenal, Bravo wants to utilize equipment blocks to save his hand in order to pay for his hero ability and the dominated attack. Bravo often has to rely on Dominate from his hero ability and attacks like Macho Grande in order to close out games. However, Bravo loves pitching these blues early game and playing them once his opponents have exhausted most of their armor blocks. Bravo utilizes Titan's Fist and Steel Braid Buckler into most heroes for a balance between offense and defense. However, Sledge of Anvilheim and Zealous Belting help him push damage in fatigue matchups. Kayo's Brute playstyle takes a much more aggressive approach to the game. While he may only start the game with 1 weapon zone, he creates a Might token the first time he discards a 6+ power attack on his turn. These mites add up over the course of the game, helping Kayo apply offensive pressure. Furthermore, his hero ability buffs his attacks that aren't on the combat chain, meaning that he'll create a might token whenever discarding 5 power attacks like Yellow Wild Ride. Notably, this buff also applies to pitched attacks and attacks revealed when clashing with opponents. As an aggressive hero, Kayo likes to send multiple attacks each turn. Some examples of Kayo's Go Wide attacks are Wild Ride, which gets Go Again by drawing and randomly discarding a 6 power attack, as well as Buck Wild by pitching an attack with 6 power. Additionally, discarding Agile Windup will create an agility to help him attack multiple times the following turn. Kayo's Mandible Claw is efficient at turning extra resources into chip damage in between attacks. Mandible Claw synergizes perfectly with his draw discard attacks, getting Go Again whenever a card with 6 or more power has been discarded. These draw discard attacks trade powerful offensive abilities at the cost of not being able to block defensively. Thankfully, Kayo's equipment can help him block on critical turns even if his hand doesn't block much. Additionally, Rally the Coast Guard can let him discard a 0-block attack for an extra 3 points of defense. Even though Kayo doesn't have much disruption, he runs all 3 colors of Strongest Survive to lightly encourage opponents to block, keeping them off of a full card hand. Into fatigue matchups, Kayo wants to run his Go Wide attacks to apply constant pressure, while in aggressive mirrors, his clashes improve his blocking capabilities, and the tokens they generate let him send back good damage in return. Our Mechanologist hero Dash gets to start each game with a Mechanologist item in the arena. When starting with her Hyperdriver, Dash plays as an aggressive board presence hero. The first time Dash boosts each turn, she'll remove a steam counter from her Hyperdriver in order to gain a resource. Dash's aggressive power comes from her boost attacks, which let her banish a Mechanologist card from the top of her deck in order to give the attack Go Again. Above rate boost attacks like 0 to 60, Zipper Hit, and Throttle help her race opponents' life totals down to 0. However, Hyperdriver synergies turn this hero up to 11. While Dash has a Hyperdriver on the board, Jumpstart and Rev Up's resource costs are discounted, becoming additional copies of her above rate boost attacks. Furthermore, whenever she boosts away Big Bertha or Crankshaft, she'll extend the longevity of her Hyperdriver, even if it's about to lose its last counter when these attacks are boosted away. Dash's Precon wields 2 drastically different weapons, however, the one she picks largely depends on whether she's going first or second. If forced to go first, Dash often runs Plasma Barrel Shot, pitching resources into it and arsenaling, sculpting the perfect hand for a big follow-up turn. However, if she gets to play second, she'd much rather run Talishar for its efficient damage numbers. Dash's core equipment suite strikes a balance between offense and defense. Blossom of Spring is critical for fixing a turn where she needs just 1 extra resource to fix the turn. Into a lot of physical matchups, she runs 3 copies of Blade Beckoner equipment for the 6 block. However, she may want to run Hope Merchant's Hood into some heroes to help her improve or completely fix a bad hand. Into Runeblades, she'll want to run Achilles Accelerator for AB1 and its extra utility, while going up to Arcane Barrier 3 for the Wizard matchup. The most complicated part about Dash is calculating how to efficiently convert her hands on offense. For example, there are a lot of different ways she can play a hand with a red Throttle, blue Crankshaft, yellow 0 to 60, and red Jumpstart. However, it's often most efficient to pitch the blue Crankshaft to play the Throttle, 0 to 60, and Jumpstart. Plus, if we still have Blossom of Spring, we can convert its resource plus the 1 floating into additional 4 damage with Talishar. While Dash excels when going fast, the boost mechanic causes her to struggle into fatigue matchups. Against these heroes, she wants to swap out Fenderbender, Recharge, and Talishar for Overblast, Underloop, and Plasma Barrel Shot to set up 5-card combo turns. Next up is Phi, the Draconic Ninja. His hero ability has 2 parts, which both interact with Phoenix Flames. The first lets him start each game with a Phoenix Flame in his graveyard, while the second part lets him revive his Phoenix Flame at instant speed. While this ability costs 3 resources, it gets reduced for each Draconic Chainlink Phi controls, making his goal to attack as many times as possible each turn. Phi is at his strongest when he's able to send a handful of Draconic attacks. Brand with Cinderclaw is especially powerful, making his next attack on the combat chain Draconic, either reducing the cost of his hero ability early, or empowering cards like Dragon Power and Art of the Dragon Fire as Chain Enders. Speaking of Chain Enders, Lava Burst is a powerful 0-cost 5-power attack to end Phi's turns, while other Chain Enders like Snatch and Salt the Wound punish opponents for either blocking too much or not blocking enough. As a 2-star hero, Phi sequencing is slightly trickier. You'll want to begin most turns with a Draconic starter and continue to pressure opponents with a continuous string of attacks. Between Searing Emberblade and his Phoenix Flames, it's not uncommon for Phi to send 6 to 7 chain links at his opponent. The Crouching Tiger pieces are Phi's mainstay equipment. Blood Scent, Tearing Shuko, and Pouncing Paws don't just block for Battle-Worn 1 each, but the 2-power Crouching Tiger and the 1 extra resource let Phi convert an additional 3 offensive value on a future turn when he's ready to use them. In the aggro mirror, Fi wants to run Blade Beckoner Helm. Since most of his cards block for 2 instead of 3, he can lose a lot of tempo if forced to block with his hand in order to stay in the game. Into these aggro matchups, he sideboards in cards that let him be more defensive while dishing out consistent damage. Into matchups where he isn't worried about blocking, however, he wants to bring in Hope Merchant's Hood to fix non-functional hands. On the other hand, he brings Mask of the Swarming Claw, Double Cross, and Arcane Polarity into arcane matchups, and increases his resource density to more easily pay for the Arcane Barrier. Dorinthea is a mid-range warrior utilizing a myriad of attack reactions to help her trusty Dawnblade get the edge over her opponents. Thea's hero ability synergizes perfectly with her signature sword. As a warrior, she can attack an additional time with the first weapon that hits each turn, helping Dawnblade get its +1 counters when it hits a second time each turn. Dorinthea's weapon ramps up in strength after it dons its first +1 counter, becoming even more difficult to block as it accrues even more. While Dawnblade loses all of its counters if it hasn't hit in a turn, attack reactions make opponents second guess how many cards they need in order to fully block it out. This can be especially challenging since defense reactions and instants are the only cards that can be played in response to attack reactions on the combat chain. The warrior class focuses on attack reactions to support its weapon swings, and Thea's precon deck is no exception. Attack reactions with reprise punish opponents for blocking from hand. Even when Dawnblade is perfectly blocked out, a timely Ironsong response can all but guarantee Dorinthea's sword will hit. Because of this, it's important to know how many cards and resources are available following each Dawnblade swing. Other than Overpower, most of her attack reactions in Silver Age can only buff Dawnblade by a maximum of 3 power. Even when she's trying to arsenal a defense reaction, the threat of an attack reaction may cause opponents to overblock. Dorinthea has several ways to get extra action points to swing Dawnblade twice each turn, including Refraction Bolters, Warrior's Valor, and Trot Along. Furthermore, Agile Engagement, Lead with Speed, and Goblet of Blood-Run Wine can generate agility tokens to give her an extra action point on the following turn. Between Helm of Unity, Gauntlets of Unity, and Refraction Bolters, Dorinthea's armor suite provides a maximum of 7 block over the course of the game. As a mid-range hero, she often wants to block with her Unity equipment along with any extra cards that can't be converted on offense or be set in arsenal for a future turn. Into aggro heroes, Dorinthea wants to keep her life totals high while trying to race opponents. Put in context can improve her blocking power, letting her choose when to trade life points for Dawnblade counters on critical turns. Because aggressive heroes struggle to block, Dorinthea can quickly snowball the game as soon as she gets a single +1 counter on her sword. Arcane Barrier 3 and Oasis Respite work to improve her matchup into wizards. On the other hand, Wreak Havoc punishes defensive heroes for setting defense reactions in Arsenal. Azalea plays the role of an aggressive sniper, firing tall, disruptive arrows that are nearly impossible to fully block out. As a ranger, Azalea's hero ability lets her put her arsenal on the bottom of her deck in order to put the top card of her deck face up in arsenal, dominating it if it's an arrow. Arrow attacks can only be fired from arsenal in exchange for solid damage and disruptive on-hit effects. Between weakening equipment and creating Bloodrot Pox tokens, Azalea's disruptive arrows pair perfectly with her hero ability. Because Azalea wants to flip arrows from deck into arsenal, knowing the top card is crucial. Thankfully, she has several cards that let her check the top card of her deck, either by revealing it or opting to leave it on top or sink it to the bottom. Azalea's signature bow, Death Dealer, lets her load an arrow face up into arsenal while also drawing a card. Keep in mind that Death Dealer's card draw will change the top card of her deck, so it's often best to activate the bow and draw before opting or revealing cards. Her quiver Crow's Nest isn't used often, but its ability can buff aim counter arrows for a resource if they're put in arsenal through Azalea's ability. Azalea's equipment provides more offensive utility than defensive value, so she relies on evasive damage and disruption in order to win games. As a ranger, Azalea supplements her arrows with a number of pumps. These ranger pumps increase the damage of her next arrow attack, either providing extra utility or making her arrows even more disruptive. Into defensive heroes, Azalea tries to stack several pumps on a single dominated arrow to get over blocks. With proper setup, she can threaten more than 16 dominated damage in a single arrow attack. Memorial Ground also lets her recycle an infecting shot to the top of her deck, ensuring that she can dominate it with her hero ability. When Azalea needs to go wide, Bullseye Bracers and Bolton Boots can help chip down opponents. Swift Shot, Ravenous Rabble, and Bolton Shot also help her send multiple attacks in a single turn, while Call in the Big Guns and Take Aim assist with loading extra arrows in arsenal. Even though Azalea has access to Arcane Barrier 1, she would much rather race wizards to 0 life. Instead of slowing down to pitch into Arcane Barrier, quick clicks and nimblism help her apply as much pressure as possible by speeding up the game. Runeblades are masters of both physical and arcane damage, and Viserai is no exception. As an aggressive combo hero, Viserai can send an incredible amount of damage split between physical attacks and rune chants generated by his cards and his hero ability. Once he's played a non-attack action, he'll create a rune chant whenever he plays another Runeblade card. Rune chants are tokens that trigger whenever he plays an attack action or activates a weapon attack, threatening 1 arcane damage per rune chant before the attack resolves. Due to the number of rune chants that Viserai creates from his hero ability over the course of the game, most heroes need to make sideboard sacrifices to bring Arcane Barrier 1 against this hero. Viserai's split damage makes it even more difficult for opponents to block properly. For example, when an attack like Runic Felling Song threatens 7 points of physical damage and a single point of arcane damage. Do you really want to pitch an entire card to prevent the 1 ping of arcane damage? It's crucial for Viserai to play auras and create rune chants each turn, as these synergize with attacks like Rune Rager Swarm, Hit the High Notes, and Shrill of Skullform. Mavrian Skies, Trot Along, and Flying High are excellent turn starters, enabling him to go wide while turning on his hero ability for the rest of the turn. Malefic Incantations are another excellent starter, increasing his rune chant generation for cards like Amplify the Arknight and Rune Flash. Even though Viserai wants to utilize these combos to maximize the value of his 4 and 5 card hands, he also doesn't mind taking an off turn to set up rune chants with Read the Runes or Spellblade Assault. Defense reactions like Sigil of Suffering and Reduce to Rune Chant threaten arcane damage while improving his survivability into physical damage dealers. Against these heroes, his Guardwell equipment provides an additional 6 block over the course of the game. Beckoning Haunt provides additional utility, letting him recycle Malefic Incantation or another key aura from his graveyard. He doesn't mind running 4 arcane prevention pieces into heroes like Kayo, while Crown of Dichotomy and Runebleed Robe provide extra utility into the wizard matchup. In addition to his well-rounded equipment, Reaping Blade provides Viserai with an extremely efficient source of reliable damage. In addition to its good damage numbers, the static effect is another boon, preventing heroes from healing when they're at higher life. Once Viserai gets his opponents to low life totals, his weapon demands at least 1 card from hand, while rune chants can further tax their resources. When closing out games, Vexing Malice's 2 arcane damage can catch opponents with AB1 off guard, while Sigil of Suffering can steal games if they ever tap out of resources when attacking at 1 HP. Arakni Web of Deceit is a mid-range assassin, marking opponents and utilizing their toolbox of disruptive stealth attacks and unpredictable attack reactions to keep them on their toes. Arakni's signature daggers, Mark of the Huntsman, showcase one of their core mechanics. When these daggers hit, Arakni can destroy them in order to mark opponents. Against marked opponents, Arakni's stealth attacks get +1 and go again on hit, but hitting a marked hero will consume the mark altogether. After destroying Mark of the Huntsman, Arakni's goal is to equip a Graphene Calicera in its wake. Caliceras are efficient 1-cost daggers getting go again when they attack a marked hero, whether or not they hit. More importantly, the stealth keyword on these daggers gives them additional synergy with Arakni and their Agents of Chaos. If Arakni sees a marked opponent at the end of their own turn, they'll transform into a random Agent of Chaos, gaining 1 of 6 new abilities to trick and disrupt opponents. Agents like Black Widow and Funnel Web provide disruption, while Orb Weaver and Trapdoor provide utility. As a mid-range hero, Arakni can change how aggressively or defensively they play based on their hand. Attack reactions and traps help Arakni trick opponents into playing suboptimally, whether on offense or defense. Arakni's attack reactions can either buff their disruptive attacks or shred through opponents' blocks, while traps punish opponents for playing too offensively. Arakni's chaos attacks have effects that apply to both heroes equally. Therefore, it's up to Arakni to identify the right time to use these attacks, to maximize Concoct Disorder's benefit and minimize Hyperinflation's detriment. In addition to all of the tools discussed so far, dagger support cards allow Arakni to retrieve daggers from graveyard, enabling them to remark opponents multiple times over the course of the game. Dagger attack reactions like 2 sides to the blade and scar tissue can make it even more difficult for opponents to properly block out Arakni's daggers. Arakni's equipment may not be the best at blocking, but they provide solid utility and disruption. While Stalker's Steps helps Arakni go wide, Danger Digits and Prey Spotters help mark opponents, turning on Black Widow and Funnel Web's disruption. With so many different tools that can be played offensively or defensively, it's up to players to figure out the best course of action into each matchup based on the current game state. Iyslander is an elemental wizard who utilizes Icy Disruption and wizard combos in order to win games. Even though she starts with 18 life instead of the standard 20, she can make up for this deficit and steal games by sending lethal arcane damage on her opponent's turn. As a wizard, she's able to play blue non-attack action cards from her arsenal as if they were instants, while her Essence of Ice makes her incredible at disrupting opponents. Whenever she plays an ice card during her opponent's turn, she'll create a frostbite token under their control. Each frostbite increases the cost of cards and activated abilities. While a single frostbite may seem like just 1 point of value, it can completely stop heroes from playing chain enders like Lava Burst, saving her as much as 5 points of value. This makes timing Iyslander's frostbites incredibly important, since they can completely stop opponents in their tracks, especially if they don't have enough resources to pay for the additional cost. Iyslander's elemental spells can be fused, revealing an ice card from hand in order to disrupt opponents. Aether Icevein is one of her MVPs, forcing opponents to discard a card or pay 2 resources whenever it's fused and deals damage. Ice Spike is another MVP in this precon, since it doesn't even need to be played from Arsenal to be played at instant speed on her opponent's turn, creating not just 1, but 2 frostbites if her opponent has an exposed equipment zone. Even though wizards are infamous for their arcane spells, Iyslander runs several mid-range attacks as a battle mage. Fjendel's Fighting Spirit and Wounded Bolt are powerful 3-for-8s, when Iyslander is at lower life than her opponent. Defensive tools like On the Horizon and Brothers in Arms help Iyslander play a strong mid-range game plan, blocking with a few cards and pitching a blue to send one of her big attacks or spells. She's a hero with good numbers, and optimizing the value of damage and disruption each turn is key. Iyslander's game plan is to keep life totals even until she can send a lethal spell on her opponent's turn to end the game. Between her defensive tools, big attacks, and disruptive spells, Iyslander slowly but surely chips away at her opponents until they're in the danger zone. Most of the time she wants to end the game with a spell like Emeritus Scolding, but any of her taller spells will do, especially when combined with cards that further increase the damage of her spells. Iyslander always runs Spellfire Cloak for a free resource on her opponent's turn, but 3 pieces of Blade Beckner equipment and AB5 into Wizards bolster her defenses against both physical and arcane damage respectively. Into aggro heroes, she wants to maximize her disruption with well-timed Icy Blues. However, into Fatigue, she aims to set up an Ice Eternal combo, fusing and responding with an Ice Spike in order to deal a massive chunk of arcane damage based on the number of frostbites created. Rounding out today's episode is our Mystic Illusionist Enigma. She focuses on building up a board state of ward auras, also known as a ward state. Cosmo's Scroll of Ancestral Tapestry turns her ward auras into weapons with power based on their ward value. Her ward attacks cost 1 resource to activate, but Enigma makes her first Spectral Shield attack free. By pitching an Inner Chi, she can create a Spectral Shield with a +1 counter, with Cosmo giving it go again. The natural synergies between Enigma and Cosmo utilize her board state to attack offensively and prevent damage defensively, making her excel as a mid-range hero. In order to get an Inner Chi for her hero ability, Enigma runs a suite of legendary Mystic instants. These cards transcend if she's played another blue card this turn, returning to hand flipped. Once these cards have been turned into an Inner Chi, they can either be pitched into Enigma's hero ability or be used to pay for the resource costs of her other cards. If she has 2 of these instants in hand, she can actually play the first one and respond with the second in order to transcend both of them. However, as Enigma, it's most important to always
remember to D-Chi.
A lot of Enigma's ward auras are instants, allowing her to play on either player's turn for offensive or defensive value. However, ward auras are destroyed to prevent any amount of damage that would be dealt to her. Because of this, one of the trickiest parts about Enigma is knowing when to allocate resources to protect critical auras versus when to give them up. Fortunately, Enigma blocks extremely well, with a lot of 4 blocks and defense reactions that can help her protect her board state. Offensively, Enigma wants to apply pressure by putting +1 counters on critical auras. For instance, Spectral Manifestations can create a Spectral Shield token with 3 +1 counters on it. This essentially acts as a free 0-for-4 go-again attack between Enigma and Cosmo's abilities. Enigma's Phantasm attacks also help her deal above-rate damage. However, these attacks are destroyed whenever they're defended by a non-illusionist attack with 6 or more power. To make matters worse, any go-again on these attacks will not resolve if popped. Enigma's Mystic cards care about creating cards, as well as pitching and playing blues. For instance, Waxing Spectre and Waning Vengeance get extra value if they enter or leave the arena when a blue card has been pitched. 2 more examples are Fluid Motion and Manifest Muscle. These attacks also get additional value if a card has been created, which includes Enigma's Spectral Shield tokens. In addition to playing at instant speed, Enigma's challenge comes from adapting her game plan around her opponent. This means blocking well to slow down faster strategies, while putting slower heroes on a clock with the value generated from her hero ability. Whether Enigma is playing against Fatigue, Aggro, or Arcane matchups, she wants to adjust her game plan accordingly. This ensures that she can maximize the value from attacking and preventing damage with her ward state. Overall, I hope that today's video helped you figure out which hero to pick up for the Silver Age format. Let me know who you're playing in the comments below, and if you made it to this point in the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing, as well as supporting the channel on Patreon. That's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll teach you in the next one.